Nights out under the sky, watching stars align. Days of making sweet honey, Melissa, lemon balm. Nights as warm as your breath on my chest, so calm. Now baby, let the summer breeze carry us away. Let the summer breeze carry us away, baby.
I want you guys to check out a really great interview I have with Abraham Joseph. He's on Instagram at official Abraham Joseph. This is Dr. Summer. I'm here with Joseph. Joseph has a very interesting story. Joseph is working on a television series, and the series is called The Real Italian.
It's the real Sicilians.
He corrected me. You see? The real Sicilians. How did that evolve?
Okay, I'll tell you the story. It's funny. Last summer, in August of 2018, I was actually in Sicily with my children. And I had this deep desire to go there, not for anything that I could explain, but once I arrived in Sicily, it became evident while I was there. And it's tied to my own personal journey, and I think just what Sicily represents historically on multiple levels.
Mm-hmm.
Sicily in the American consciousness is mostly associated with the mob and mafia and the Godfather. So it has a lot of, I would say...
2018, you were in Sicily.
I was in Sicily in the summer of 2018 with my children. And as I was mentioning, while I was there, I didn't know what drove me to be there, but for whatever reason, I chose to be in Sicily this particular summer with my children. And it was in the context of me going through this, I would say, awakening sorts of process, and I'll get back to the notion of awakening and tying all of that in, also with my own personal journey. Sicily, as I was mentioning, is very much tied to the Godfather in the American psyche. And the fact that the Godfather somehow or another knows how to get things done. He's the wise man of the neighborhood, and he's called the Don. Well, Don in Latin, don, means a person of a certain level of maturity, that he's been around the block enough that he knows how things work. He understands how the universe works. So the notion of the Godfather has been portrayed in the context of American cinema and American popular culture as something that is relating to the worst of us in a certain context, yet it also speaks to who we are. Because we do know that there is something that's working, that's operating at a macro level that allows this universe to operate naturally. It is consistent at some level. And the consistency that's associated with is simply the law of attraction. Because your life is what you think it to be, what you expect it to be.
Awesome.
And you're evolving through your life, connecting the dots. Meaning, I've been in a personal journey my entire life. My background is one that I grew up in New York City, in Washington Heights, in a very humble neighborhood of a single parent, an immigrant mother coming from the Dominican Republic. Yet you look at me, and my features are not one that are necessarily tied to what the Dominican stereotype is. And why is that? Because we all come from different places.
Yes.
And if you understand the history of the Dominican Republic, it was founded by the Dominican order, who were responsible for the Spanish Inquisition. And who were the ones that were expelled during the Spanish Inquisition? There were Muslims and Jews. And I have the feature of a Semite, because that is where I come from. And if you trace all the way back through history, the Jews were not also in southern and central Spain, they were also in Sicily. Because Sicily, at the time that the edict was issued, the Spanish decree of the Spanish Inquisition, Sicily was part of Spain.
Wow.
When I was in Del Marina,
History lesson. Go ahead.
but it's important because
Yes.
if you don't know your history,
Yes.
you don't know who you are.
Yes.
And it applies to all minorities.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a person growing up in the United States, I could speak as a person that was representative of all minorities. Not only as someone that had a certain Jewish consciousness, but also someone that was a member of the Hispanics, but also a person that also had black blood in me. Because my great...
This is Dr. Summer. We're back. We lost power for a second. But where we left off, very interesting story here. You said your great-grandmother was Haitian.
My great-grandmother was Haitian.
Your great-grandmother was Haitian. You're Sicilian.
Well,
Heart.
I traced
You're back to
back
Sicily.
to Sicily. We were
Okay.
to look at the lineage.
So we're going into where we lost power. We were talking about your Haitian great-grandmother. So keep going.
No, it's just, I bring that up because generally speaking, here in the United States, and I'm speaking simply here as an American to another American, we typically think of the African American experience within the context of only the United States and the slavery experience that was here. But the slavery experience was one that was different throughout the Americas, depending on who the slave owner was. If you look at Napoleon, for example, there was actually a system of earning your freedom. And that was actually one of the causes of the Civil War. Because as the country was expanding west with the Louisiana Purchase, the debate was, well, can we expand slavery with it? The Louisiana Purchase, by definition, was also assimilating or incorporating a piece of territory that you had free slaves in the South, which ran in contradiction to that which had been normally accepted in the norms after the American Revolution and the ratification of the Constitution. My point in sharing this with you is that being African American or having that consciousness is not limited to the U.S. experience, because slavery was experienced differently depending on where you were in the hemisphere. That's one thing. Secondly, from a Jewish standpoint, we also were slaves. But our understanding and rationality around it, the consciousness, is one that evolved differently from that per se with African Americans, because it just evolved differently because the attitude has been different. It's the expectation that tomorrow is a better day, that you as an individual can make a difference in your life. And that's why I tied back to the law of attraction, because each of us are creating our own reality. There are no victims here. We're all creators. Because the creative energy, that which we call source energy, that which we call life force, that which we call God, is something that is actually living and flowing through each of us. And that has a certain frequency. It's a frequency that's very high. It's about love, it's about appreciation, it's about passion, it's about clarity, etc. And our emotions are what tell us how far are we from that frequency, because we are two beings in one. We are non-physical and we're physical energy, blended in this physical being that we call a human being. We're not human workers, we're human beings. We be. And the being is tapping into that infinite intelligence that allows you to flow naturally in life, that it takes you from experience to experience as you determine what you prefer in the vastness of all this contrast. Diversity is good for that very reason, because we're able to see what we don't like and what we do like. But most people, particularly in this generation, get stuck on what they don't like. That's all they talk about. So that's the conditioning, where you actually talk again and again and again about what's already past news, old news. Because once it's been thought, eventually it will become into something. But you always could think new things that become new things. But if you're still talking about the same thing, you will have the same thing. But people have lost an understanding of what that creative process is. And in tying this back to the real Sicilians, Sicily has been a melting pot for more than 2,000 years. It's actually where a group of Jews actually emigrated after the fall of the Second Temple in AD 70. Jews were an integral part of what eventually became Italy. 10% of the Roman population in Rome was Jewish. And we understand early Christianity, early Christians were Jews that saw it as a different understanding of what they could bring to the world, because they wanted to expand what? They wanted to expand the one consciousness, which was, what was the issue 2,000 years ago relative to where we are right now? Was the pagan world versus the monotheistic world. Paganism is not much of a concern today because roughly 80% of you would call the world population accepts there to be some type of one consciousness. 2,000 years ago, that wasn't the discussion. It was a discussion whether or not there were all these statues and things that people would pray to that were called gods. There were hundreds of gods. There were thousands of gods in certain cultures. So the idea of a one consciousness was a revolutionary concept in many civilizations. It was in the Roman Empire, because that wasn't the religion. That wasn't the understanding. And
You don't read about this in history books.
Wow, it's right.
Well, some, maybe.
It's right in front of you. The thing is that we've lost somehow the ability to connect dots. And it's your own life is a matter of connecting dots too. Your own experience, if you think back, anything you've become in your life, it was an idea first before you became it. And as you evolved, you got closer and closer, and you felt better about it because you knew you were about to become that. I know certainly as a younger man, as I imagined myself becoming a banker, the closer I got to those doors that were opening for me, I knew I was on my path, that I was on my way to that which I saw myself that I could become. And it's true for anyone. It's true. I would imagine you when you were practicing nursing. As you got closer, the more excited because you finally made that destination. But then what? Guess what? Another destination is then imagined by you. So you imagine you're becoming before there's any evidence of it. And that's what we're doing consistently every single day. That's what we're doing. We're imagining the new. But some people have lost that ability to imagine because you're so focused on what's happened that
in
they
the past.
keep repeating what happened. They're changing, but they're changing into the same. So, the real Sicilians evolved really as a natural evolution of my own Instagram account. Because when I was studying the law of attraction and everything about it with Abraham Hicks, it was a way for me to actually rationalize and reason that which I was learning, and I was using Instagram as a platform to write about it. For me, speaking to the universe. And it evolved from me writing to me then taking photography and mastering that, for then me to then coming up with the notion of the real Sicilians, because I went through a process while I was in Sicily and said, well, now what? Now what do I do with this account? And since I was in Sicily, there was a book that read the Sicilians and said, wow, wouldn't it be a great idea to write about the real Sicilians? Because the Sicilians that book was about the negative stuff that we hear about, the mob, organized crime and all that. There's just so much more to what Sicily is, historically. It was a place that's been conquered by every major civilization.
Wow.
It's a place where it's been a melting pot. It's a place where women had rights in the 1200s that perhaps were rights that weren't afforded to women until the late 1800s and early 1900s in most Western countries. So it's always been a place that's been beyond its time because it's celebrated the diversity of what we are, of who we are. There is no joy in sameness because in the sameness there is no difference. Having a cookie cutter mentality is boring by design. That is why it's called cookie cutter.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When people have lost the notion, the understanding of what words mean. Words have a vibration. They're supposed to cause a feeling in you. When you're happy, the word in itself is supposed to mean something to you, but not just mean something to you like, I'm happy. No, I'm happy because I feel it. Because we're all vibrational. That's where we come from. We come from vibration. Think about it. If we weren't vibrating beings, you wouldn't be able to vibrate to music. You wouldn't be able to dance. Yet we dance because we vibrate to the sound of it, because we're a frequency that's vibrating against another frequency. That's vibrating. That's what we're doing when we're dancing. When we're in love, we feel that alignment with that other person. But let me put it in a broader standpoint so perhaps your listeners can understand it best. If you tune into a radio station and you listen to a sad song long enough, don't you get sad? Of course you do.
Of course, yeah.
You tune into a happy song, don't you get happy? Of course you do. Because you yourself are tuning into a frequency. But you don't need a song to be able to find that feeling place. You could find it within you because you have emotions to do that. And what's your happy place? Your happy place is a source within you because it is consistently focused on that which you want to become. And it's guiding you to that place. Emotions have nothing to do with the other person. We just chose it to be about the other person because we've forgotten what they're supposed to represent. That's why most people are looking outside of themselves to define themselves. Oh, this person is making me upset. No, they're not making you upset. You're allowing your emotions to be tied to things that are beyond you when it's supposed to be all about you. It's an internal game. It's an internal game.
That's okay, keep going. We're going to extend this. Keep going.
So, to share with people
Keep going.
to share with people how connected we really are, I started to channel people on the real Sicilians because, for lack of a better word, over the last 2 or 3 years, as part of my understanding and the teachings of Abraham Hicks, I became a meditation addict. And I say addict in the best of way because I've always thought of addiction as something that is so good you couldn't give it up because it felt so good. That's why there are certain drugs I never touched.
Neither.
Because I knew that I would hate to become
A slave or an
slave
act of
to something that felt so good that I had no
then
dominion
it would
over.
take everything,
Exactly.
including your every
pe-
fiber of yourself.
Exactly.
Right.
But when you become addicted to the best of things, then you could expect the best of things to flow into your experience because you're aligned with the best of things. I've never heard anyone say anything negative about meditation. Never.
Well, it depends on how you use the word. Meditation/prayer.
Well, people speak of prayer, yet they don't really understand what prayer is. To pray to a God from a place of need is not prayer. You're just reinforcing your scarcity, your neediness. But to pray from a place of appreciation is very different. I'm so happy to be where I am right now because I know this is exactly where I need to be, and I know that tomorrow will be a better day, and I know that things are coming to me sounds very different than saying, please, your God, please, please, please. No! There's a difference. And what meditation allows you to do is to quiet your mind so that those positive, reinforcing, positive thoughts are able to come through because the negative thoughts block them. So there's a difference. The people have so much built around the word to meditate that they don't understand that it's just a very simple notion. is to just chill and
So-
quiet your mind.
Quiet your mind.
Correct. So you can let the
But
positive.
there are some people who say, some people are afraid of meditation. They go, well, some Christians, they'll say, well, if you meditate, you're allowing other things. You can get to a level where you're allowing other things
But
to
what are
come
these
in.
other things people?
Dark forces.
But what are these dark-
I've met people who are that way. Oh no, I wouldn't do
But-
that.
but-
I'm
but
not
that's-
going to
but
talk
that's-
to
but
anybody
that's-
who
but
does
that-
that
but that's
because
but that's a belief.
Right.
That's a belief. Just like saying the government is responsible for my condition. You know and I know that's not the reason why people find themselves where they are. So the very belief holds you hostage to where you don't want to be. So who's the one that's coming up with these beliefs that have false premises?
ministers. They'll say, oh, you have to be careful of meditation because you can get to a point in meditation where dark forces will take over. So then there's that fear.
But what forces? Only to the extent that you're trying to sort of impose and control other people. There's nothing to control.
You hit the nail on
There's
the head.
nothing to control. Nothing. Everything you're controlling is by your focus.
So let's go into angels and demons.
They're all constructs of the human story. They will reveal them. This is an imaginary place where thoughts become things. So just like Earth could be your heaven, it could be your hell if you create it to be. Because your thoughts manifest. And
Yes.
then the universe gives you evidence for that which you believe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a self-reinforcing
So you
story.
believe in vision boards for goals.
Well, vision boards are only effective to the extent that you could actually feel it and you practice enough. If you're just looking at something casually and not believing it, it just remains a photo on a wall that means nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So vision boards, yes, do they help? Of course they help. But they only help if you're really injecting and practicing what it feels like to have what you want. You can't. Your life is what you expect it to be. If you expect to be wealthy and believe it because your worthiness is something you have found in you as a vibrational feeling place, then that worthiness, that blessedness has to catch up with you. Because it's first a thought and a feeling, it's first a vibration before it is a physical thing you can touch, taste, smell,
So
see.
the real Sicilians, the series, is it more of a reality program or is it scripted?
No, it's not scripted. It's completely inspired, and it's evolved from the main character is a guy by the name of Abraham Joseph, which is essentially, I would say, which is at the core of what I am today. It's the blending of these two beings that I was talking about. Your inner being, your infinite intelligence aspect with that physical beings. So I would call him sort of the rabbi or priest of the show. Okay? And then I have other characters that have extended that speak to different parts of who I am and speak to different people that may actually see the show for different reasons, because we're not here to be teaching and preaching and telling other people how they should be living. This is not what it's about. It's about having fun as well, because I wouldn't want to do a show that's about me not having fun. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. Because what's the point? And I've never done anything that I haven't enjoyed.
Uh-huh.
From the most petty to what I'm doing now, which is probably the most liberating because it comes from a place of complete inspiration. And that is, I channel, I have other characters that have kind of forked from this. One is called Don Joseph. And he's sort of the alter ego of the rabbi, because he's the guy that's attained a lot of wisdom from the street, so he channels a lot of rappers and channels reggaeton guys, because he understands the intensity of those people that maybe are without but want, and why they want it, and the reasons they give themselves for wanting it. Sometimes it's individual, sometimes it's because you're so angry at what you think is the system that's doing this to you, when it's not the system, it's just your construct of it. But for whatever reason, it gives them a sense of empowerment that they need to actually propel them forward. And it serves its purpose. Because you have to meet people where they are. And a lot of people are there. And I know they're there because I've been there, because I grew up in the ghetto.
In New York.
In New York, so I understand it. I understand the attitude. I understand the lingo. I understand what it is.
So how long have you been in California?
3 years now. And I came to California not to be in this business at all. I came here to be with my kids. I actually was running a healthcare company in South Florida. And then I ultimately resigned from that company. And then this became my focus because it became the natural extension of what I had been doing with my meditation work and my Instagram account. I mean, I was involved in a startup, and I was raising close to $500,000 a month meditating.
You're kidding.
Absolutely.
Oh wow.
So it's not that I'm just speaking about meditation because I think or it sounds good. It's I've practiced it because I'm about results. Because I like money. I like to do things. I want things in my life just like every other individual. And it goes to this hang up that a lot of people have about spirituality and materialism. Everything comes from spirit, because if you understand that everything is first vibration, which is non-physical, and it becomes something, a thing, a thought, which eventually turns into action, and then action then delivers some result because of that action, you then come to understand that everything you see around you was first a vibration before it was a thought, before it was what it is. So we're all coming from spirit. And there's nothing non-spiritual about wanting to be wealthy. Nothing. Because look around you, nature, how abundant it is. By definition, that which we come from thinks abundantly. Otherwise, we could not be. So, going back to the characters, there's Don, there's Romeo, which is a lover of love, and he channels primarily love songs at all places of the that emotional journey, which that's what it is. Because most people that fall in love for conditional reasons. They find something in that individual that they love, and then when they start asking themselves, like, well, tell me more about you, and then they start finding out other conditions that are not so pleasing, then it starts becoming not so loving. So what did you fall in love with? The condition. So it was always conditional. But you avoid a lot of those bumps when you fall in love with who you are first.
Loving yourself
and then
first.
Attract that matches you. A lot of people talk about looking for their soulmates. One of the wonderful things that I learned from Abraham Hicks is that before you're able to be a match to anyone beyond you, you first have to be a match to your own soul. Because that too is a frequency that you need to match to. But people again are looking outside of themselves for that which they seek, when everything is within. Within. First. And then it's without. I'm not saying anything that hasn't been written about throughout the ages. Da Vinci wrote about it, talking about self-mastery being the best thing that you can do for yourself. Jesus in his time talked about it too. The prophets before him talked about it as well. Abraham obviously knew it and introduced it to the world when he was a physical being here.
So you manifest your wealth through meditation.
Well, meditation then gets the ideas that inspire action and everything else. It's not that I don't love action. I love action. I love being in the flow of things, but I don't engage in action for the sake of action. And that doesn't make any sense. It's like work for the sake of work.
Do you play a part in the series?
I play all the parts because I channel everyone.
Okay.
I also have a new character called Loco Joseph. Loco Joseph channels the comedians, so I channel people like Dave Chappelle. I've done Chris Rock. I've done recently Larry David. I started doing Lenny Bruce.
Channel Chris Rock.
Well, I can't channel Chris Rock just off the stuff. I basically listen to him and then I become him because I tap into his vibration as he's speaking. That's how I channel him.
So you play the parts, and they're in different areas. Okay.
Different areas, different departments, so to speak, of one's life. Comedy, obviously, I love to laugh. I love songs. I have Strauss Joseph, that's more of a music aficionado that loves classical music and opera and all these other things, and kind of is a little more high-minded when it comes to his musical choices. I have, as well as Sigmund Joseph. Sigmund Joseph channels the medical health experts and neurological people like Dr. Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza and others that talk about very much what I'm speaking about, perhaps in a more spiritual standpoint. They talk about it more from a scientific standpoint. So the objective there is to demonstrate how the science supports the spiritual aspects of the discussion.
Do you get into makeup character when you play these parts?
No, I don't.
Okay.
It's really what I'm talking about at that moment that resonates with who that emotional state that I find myself in. It has nothing to do with costume and all that stuff.
Okay.
It could eventually. I mean, right now this is just a production that's being managed by yours truly, but I envision it obviously being a little bit more complex as time evolves. Complex not meaning that it's complicated, but certainly more intricacy to it.
How many episodes?
I'm actually right now on episode 14, scene 23. And it's a mix of written text, which is Abraham Joseph typically writes something every day, and then some of these other characters will produce videos. It's either a song, or sometimes Abraham Joseph now is increasingly doing more videos where he's channeling Esther Hicks. But now this is my first opportunity to actually people hear it from Abraham Joseph directly, as opposed to me channeling, for example, Esther, for me to communicate the message that I could as eloquently share it with others.
Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you.
I appreciate this interview, and we got a lot of information from you today. And secrets. There's The Secret, which a lot of people have watched.
Sure, absolutely.
Popular years ago, but it seems like some of your theories on life are similar. That's probably why you're successful.
Well, you gotta believe it before you can be.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joseph. I want you guys to catch the program. It's called The Real Sicilian. Thanks, Joseph.
Check it out. Thank you.